Hello geometry students, and welcome to another video on reflecting in mini golf. So this time we're looking at a miniature golf course. There's the ball, there's the hole, and our goal now is to bounce the ball off of side D first and then side K and into the hole. Whenever we do these, remember we're always going to work backwards. So let me just start out by writing that reminder. So work backwards. In other words, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go backwards and reflect the hole over line K. So we're going to start out, first step will be reflect H over K. And when we're done with that, that's going to give us H prime. So let's go ahead and do that reflection. So we're reflecting H over K, which means we're going to use our ruler to carefully make a perpendicular from H. So I'm using the lines of my ruler. I happen to be using the one on the 5 right now. I'm going to go right to the middle of the H, and when I feel like I have it just right, I'm going to make a line. Okay, now I'm going to use my my paper here for measuring, and I'm going to measure the distance from right in the middle of the hole to the wall that it's going to bounce off of, and then I'm going to copy that distance on the other side, and there we go. So there's H prime. Okay, continuing to work backwards, I've done the reflection over K. Now working backwards, I'm going to reflect H prime over D. So step 2 here will be reflect H prime over D. And that's going to give us H double prime. So that's over D. Alright, so let's see what we have. So we have already H prime, and we have our line D right here, and we want to reflect this point over this line. So I'm just going to extend the same line because it's just going in the same direction. So I'm going to extend this line down here. And I want to measure the distance now from H. Now it just barely makes the paper. It's pretty much the size of the paper, maybe a little bit less. You can just measure this. You know, you can always do this as a backup plan, by the way. You can just measure the distance from the wall. Put things in my way here for the ruler. From the wall to H prime, which I'm seeing right now, it looks like it's about 7.5 centimeters from the wall to H prime. So that means I have to go on the other side 7.5 centimeters. So right there, I'm going to extend this line just a little bit. So again, we're looking for H double prime. We determined that from the wall to H prime was 7.5 centimeters. So we're going the other way, 7.5 centimeters. So right about there. There's my H double prime. Whoops. I just measured from the wall 7.5 centimeters. There's my H double prime. Okay, next step, once you have that, is you're going to connect G to H double prime. Or aim G towards H double prime. It's not going to make it all the way there because there's a wall in the way. But we're going to aim G, I guess I zoom out a little bit more, aim G towards H double prime. There it is. There's the path. Now it's going to go in the golf course up to that point, and then it's just sort of a virtual path. It's not really going to go to the reflection because the wall is in the way. Alright, but then it's going to bounce from there to H, towards H prime. So it's going to bounce from here towards the last reflection. So it's going to bounce, number 4 will be bounce to H prime, bounce towards H prime. Okay, so let's see the ball from here. It's going to bounce off of the wall towards H prime, just like that. Alright, so there's the path it's going to take. Here's the virtual path. And then from there, last step, it's going to bounce to H. So from here, it's going to bounce to H. Okay, if we look at our path, it goes from the ball, bounces towards D, bounces off D, the angle of reflection and the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection are the same. It's going to bounce. Technically, those are to the normal, but that's okay. It works the same way this way. Then it's going to bounce towards H prime, and it also has equal angle of incidence to its angle of reflection, and then from there it's going to bounce right to the hole, and it's a hole in one. Okay, now we want to show the notation for what we just did. So we write the notation for the reflection of H. So remember that the first thing that we did was we reflected H over K to get H prime. So that's going to be my first reflection. So I use the lowercase r for reflect over the line that I'm reflecting, which is K. And the first one was K. Again, we went backwards from the directions. You always do that. Reflection over K, and we reflected H, and that gave us H prime. Okay. The next thing that we did was we reflected H prime over D. Right? We reflected H prime over the wall D to get H double prime. So let's write that one down. So we reflected over line D, we reflected H prime, and that gave us H double prime. Now there is a way to write these together as a single reflection, as a single statement of two reflections. It's called a composite of reflections, and we just do that by substitution. Because H prime is equal to the reflection over K of H, I can just substitute it in right there. So I'm going to rewrite this as the reflection over D of H prime, which is the reflection over K of H, and that's how I get my H double prime. And this works, in a way, this works with order of operation because you do the inner reflection first, right? We reflected H over K. Whatever we got from that, we reflected it, and we called it H prime, but we reflected it over D, and that's how we got our H double prime. Composition of reflections, all in one nice notation. An alternative notation for this is to say reflecting D, circle reflecting K, like you can put in parentheses or not, of H equals H double prime. You're going to see this circle notation in Algebra 2. We don't have to worry about it right now. This is just a nice convenient way of seeing it as one statement instead of two. Okay, I hope you found this helpful.